wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my second live stream. I am so excited to be here. I have a really awesome panel today. I have a very special guest. Let's see if I can I bring you to the front here, if I remember. This is Kamran, you guys. Kamran is awesome. He's a filmmaker. You want to say hi, Kamran?
Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to see everyone here, and please spread the word. I'm about to put this out on my social media that we're doing this right now, but I think it's going to be very exciting. It's a little different from the kinds of live streams that you may have seen done on other channels that I'm doing here for Lady Bellfire. We're going to talk about an interesting aspect of my career that intersects with stuff that you're all interested in. So we're going to share a little bit of the back story of how Hollywood works.
Yeah, this is really exciting. So, Zach, I met Kamran on your show. Well, I should introduce everyone. Everyone want to say hi. We have Alex Green from the White Cloaks here. We have Prophet of the Dragon, very special. I didn't know if he could come or not, and luckily he is able to be here. And then we have Zach and of course Kamran, and I'm here, and we're talking Wheel of Time today. And yes, so I met Kamran on Zach's show. We did this really awesome show about, like, what was it, Ghost, Zach's?
It was Ghosts, and then we went full woo-woo, and we actually went really deep into ancient civilizations, and it turned out to be one of my favorite shows I've ever been a part of. It was so cool, Kamran, that you were there for that, and we had a great mix of people, and it was a cool memory for me because you had to go, but then you actually came back later, which I never would have expected. So
yes, that was the coolest show I've ever done.
I had work to do, and I signed off to do the work. I had something to do the next day. But I just couldn't get the ideas out of my head. And I said, screw it, I'll stay up late tonight. And I came back, and we had a really incredible conversation after that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, it was like one of the best streams I've ever been on. But it was interesting after that because we're all chit-chatting, and then Kamran just mentioned, hey, like, I pitched Wheel of Time, and I'm like, you what? So that's
Not
what we're
gonna.
gonna.
I pitched it a while back, but yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to. I made a little intro for Kamran here.
Oh, there's an intro. All right.
Yeah, I just I made like a little thing to show what you do. If you want to talk about the kind of work that you do, you're a writer and producer, right?
Producer and director. I've directed some short films. And
you're directing short films.
Feature. Yeah. I actually do have a YouTube channel, which I don't use for this, but it has my short films on there. So it's my name, Kamran Pasha 72. If you look on YouTube, you'll find a couple things that I uploaded. A short film that I did that I directed a few years ago that won a few awards. It's a supernatural thriller set amongst the Hasidic community, which is very unusual. And then I've also did a trailer for a horror film that I've written that I intend to direct. And so hopefully as my directing career continues to evolve, I'll be posting more stuff there. But yes, I'm primarily known as a screenwriter and as a novelist. You've got a few of my projects here. You've got on the Sleeper Cell. That was the show that really hit that put me on the map in the industry. That was on during the height of the war on terror in war in Iraq. It was about Michael Ealy, who was this wonderful, handsome actor in the center, who plays very interesting. He was our lead. He played a Muslim FBI agent who infiltrates an Al-Qaeda group, led by the other gentleman on the screen, Oded Fair, who's a wonderful actor.
Yeah, he is awesome.
Yeah, he's
And
very
that
handsome.
got nominated for a Golden Globe, right?
Yeah, Golden Globes and Emmys, got nominated for both. So I got to go to both. Well, I got to go to the Emmys, didn't get to the Golden Globes, which made me sad. But I
That's
got
totally awesome. And then you're the author of 2 novels there, Shadows
yeah,
of Swords and Mothers of Believers.
yeah, and they're both
So
historical novels. Yeah, so I write a lot of historical stuff, and that TV show Kings was an adaptation of the story of King David from the Bible. And so I was on the perhaps not as successful remake of Bionic Woman that we tried so hard to make work and didn't work. But yeah, I've done a bunch of things, and I worked a lot in the CW recently. So so that's my background.
Oh, that's so awesome. And yeah, I was like just reading your bio too, and I realized, oh, you went to UCLA too. So I am a UCLA alumni too.
Oh,
So
go Bruins, go Bruins.
yeah, go Bruins. That's really cool. And before we really jump into this, I just wanted to say hello to the chat. We have Sentient Dildo, Jaden's out there, Shelby, Venus is out there, and hopefully more people will come in and start watching it with us, so they can ask questions. So what we wanted to talk to you about today, Kamran, was a very specific project you did that we all love, Wheel of Time, and we're wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this was some years ago, and I'm going back and finding the original emails that my agent sent me about this project. What are the dates? It was in 2010, so it was July of 2010, where they sent me an email saying, hey, are you familiar with the Wheel of Time material? I said, yeah, I know Robert Jordan. At the time, I'll be honest, I didn't know the material very well, and I'll be honest, I still don't know the material tremendously well, because after they didn't say yes to my project, I was like, oh, screw this, and I didn't really look further into it. And then I saw this show had been greenlit, and then I also saw that people weren't happy with what they did. And so I went back to look at the original pitch that I did and what I presented to them, the version of the story that could have happened, which from what I'm hearing might have been closer to what people wanted.
Yeah.
So
I had a few visuals here, and basically, just so people know this, I kind of back up here. I wanted to define some terms, because when you start talking about production, because I went to UCLA Extension. I was an English major, and then I went back and did production and screenwriting and development. So I thought people, if we start talking about options, they're not going to know what it is. So just so everyone in the audience knows, an option is an agreement that gives an individual or a company the exclusive right to develop and shop an IP, which is intellectual property. So like a screenplay, a novel, or something like that, for a set period of time for a specific price. So if the project isn't bought in that time, the rights revert back to the original owner, or the option can be renegotiated. And they do that to secure funding and to find like other people to work on the project as well. And there's usually in the agreement like a price if they want to outright buy the property for if they get like if they actually sell it and somebody wants to develop it. And usually the option price can be really low. So you might see something that's like, $1,000, $10,000.
It can be $1. It could be a penny.
Yeah, it could be $1. Yeah, people do that all the time. And that's what an option is. So if we start getting into jargon and you guys have questions in the chat, let us know. And yeah, so when that happens, it's called exercising the option. And Wheel of Time, if you know anything about that, has had kind of a rough production in like history and
years of many efforts to develop it.
Yeah, and I know if like I'm the kind, when I was an intern, they would ask me, hey, like Lisa, like look up like kind of who has the rights to this. And so if I was looking at Wheel of Time, I'd be kind of like questioning, because there have been so many like projects that never got it off the ground. And if I was looking at this from the outside, like writing a report to the development company I work for, I'd be saying, hey, I don't know if this Red Eagle company is the best company to work with. But that's just my kind of
they were the people that approached me in 2010.
Oh, that's cool.
I think they're still credited on the show, right? Actually, I saw that one of the people I spoke with is credited as an EP today on the show.
They
are,
very
if
cool.
You watch it, they are one of the last title cards that go across the screen of the current show.
Let me see who the executive was there. There was Rick Salvage. Rick Salvage was, and who was one of the, So Rick was on my pitch. So yeah, so that's how far back it goes.
I think Rick Salvage was in when with the Forsaken films, like back in 2003. I think he was one of the first people on that. He was either with the Forsaken, because Forsaken kind of got together and they optioned it, and then they there was like a change of staff with that, and then they formed Red Eagle, and then Red Eagle was doing all of that stuff. And in like 2004, Robert Jordan made a better deal with Red Eagle where they got more of the stuff, where they got more rights. But I think because the original one was just Eye of the World, they did the whole series for an option, and they did comic books and video games. And then Warner Brothers took a look at it, and they ended up passing on it in 2006 because they were doing the Hobbit films. And
because I one of the studios was on there. It wasn't Warner Brothers at the time. But let's see if the Evolution Project, if you'll get to them, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then in 2008, like that's when Universal Studios buys an option for Eye of the World on a feature film with I think these are guys you worked for, Jeff Kirschenbaum and Chris Morgan. So in 2000, but you did it as a TV show. So in 2008, they were still looking to do it as a film, and then you came back.
So actually, I went back to my notes. So I pitched them both versions. There was a film version,
okay,
expanded to a TV show. Again, this is 13 years old now, but I went back to my notes. So they approached me through my feature film agent. At the time, and so I had, because I was well known in television, I also had an angle how to make it a TV show, but I came to them with both.
Cool.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll have to ask you about that, but like we'll just get through the whole history of it. So you came in about 2010, right?
2010, yes, that July 2010. It must have been shortly after they got the rights, because they were very enthusiastic and energetic.
Okay.
They would lose that energy as time went on.
Yeah, and they kind of went on for a while, and then Red Eagle was doing some stuff with video games and whatnot, and then in 2015 they did that Winter Dragon thing so they could keep the rights, because by then they were talking with Sony and Amazon to get to do the TV show that came out now.
Yeah.
So
we'll be so that's the history of it. So let me, because I have not watched one moment aside from the trailers I've seen for the show on like movie theaters, right? I've not. So let me get your reactions. It's clear everyone on this panel is very deep into the lore and very deep into it. So let me just get your reactions as to the show. I'm sure you have many things that don't work. Is there anything that does work that you're okay with?
No. Not one
in the slightest.
Single shot.
Carmen,
not a sound effect, not a costume.
I think
the
worst part is it doesn't even make a good, compelling show. Like that's the hard part I have just taking myself out of the source material and being like, okay, is this actually a good fantasy show? Am I like, if I wasn't so mad that the source material has just been obliterated, am I interested in what's happening? And they don't even do a good job at making a coherent storyline that actually is engaging without even considering the source material. It's just not even a good fantasy show, period. Not even bringing the source material into account, which is horrible.
As a show, it took me 3 tries to get to the opening credits. I had to stop watching and start watching again. It's that bad, Cameron. It breaks the lore within the first 18 seconds?
Yeah. 5 seconds, right? I mean, the first 5 seconds calling everybody all men arrogant, and it's just like, oh great, thank God that it's.
So they're still in 2017.
Yes.
For stuff. I mean, these guys are trapped in a time loop, right? It's like they're still using a horse buggy.
Literally, the first 2 lines of the show are: "The world is broken. Men with great power broke it."
Arrogant. Yeah. The arrogance.
The arrogance. Yes. It was legitimately the fastest I think a television show has ever slapped me in the face.
Yeah, you know what got me, because I read the books over the summer, and I'm just like, these books are awesome. And then I kind of remember seeing that there was a show, and I looked at the trailer of it, and I'm like, oh my God, what did they do to this? Like, what is this? And I'm like, I don't want to watch this. And then I didn't. And then I looked at videos of people talking about the show, and they said it was awful. And that's how I found the White Cloaks. Then I joined their Discord, and that's how I met Alex and Pips and everyone. And I was just like, what am I even watching?
Does this start off, where does it start off allegedly in the mythos? Does it start off with the Eye of the World? I mean, or is it some other point in the timeline?
Well, the Winter Dragon thing, and the book opens with the Luz Theron story, and it talks about it's right after the breaking, and he's burning himself out.
I start there too, because you got to start with lose, right? And so, but where do they go from there?
You would think.
They don't. They don't include that at all. They cut out
No.
the single best prologue in the history of literature, and instead you have the Walmart version of the Lord of the Rings opening, where Galadriel does her intro, but there's no visual accompaniment. It's just Moraine standing there.
Yeah.
So they basically cut out the whole prologue that doesn't exist. The
Which starts off my pitch. It's very detailed.
Well, it should. I mean, it's amazing. Yes. But then so that's gone, and then it's like a bargain basement adaptation where they've just decided to add their own stuff. Where the book, so they're trying to follow the book, but they do it in such a way that it's just a complete bastardizing. So it basically, the first episode is almost a focus on Egwene more than Rand or the boys, or even Moraine. I mean, it's crazy.
You got the powerful woman, because they're not confident that the woman is inherently powerful within the story, which they are. So
yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, if I was gonna pitch it, like, that's what I'd start with. I mean, when I watched the show, I was just so blown away, because the White Cloaks are like, "Oh, you worked in the film industry. We want to get you on and talk about it." So writing, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to see the whole series just to know what they did with story arcs, to see where it went. And I was just like, what the actual F did I just see?
Sure.
If I turn this into my teacher, like, he wouldn't be okay with it. I'll just put it that way. I would get a strong tongue lashing, to quote loose there and there from him.
Well,
or I'd see the rough side of my tongue.
I think the worst part of the whole situation is that I don't want to speak for everybody here, but most of us were expecting not to be book to be book accurate, but not word for word the book. Changes are going to be made. It's it has to happen, right?
Yeah.
In some aspects, but the core of it should still be there. And the narrative that got thrown on, I think, thrust on all of us, that we're like, what is this? It's not even close. It was that, it can't be word for word the book. It's like, none of us have ever asked that. You just have to pay. You actually have to try and hit the story beats and be, honor the source material and
find what may have been
balance
in. One of the geniuses of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is that he improved on the story in some ways, right? Arwen is a real character in these movies. That whole thing that in Fellowship of the Ring, where she takes Frodo across water. That's not how it happened in the books. It's better that she did it. It's better. Yeah. It's better that she's a proactive character. Yeah. You find her backstory in the story of Aragorn. You don't read it as an appendix. It gives heart to these films. Right. So he understood, Jackson, or at least his wife who wrote the script, understood that you have to take the material and honor it by finding what's hidden within it.
Yep, and there's places to do that all over the place. There's cuts that could be made. There's places where you can inject some of your own ideas all over the place, and they just chose to it's basically like trashing George Lucas's scripts and just going, we're going to do whatever the hell we want, and just take the names and places and off we go, because that's basically what they did.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys want to hear some of what I developed with these people? You want to?
Yes. Like, what was your
pitch?
I'm very curious, because
so first of all, I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, apologize. No. I was going to say, I think it's fascinating that you pitched it both as like a feature film and a television, because that's two totally different directions. So that's very interesting. Love, pitch it to us.
All right. Well, so first of all, let me just say, because I'm not deeply versed in this, I became versed in this because I wanted the gig at the time, right? And I threw a lot of time in reading the books and getting the mythology, whatever. They had actually sent me like a synopsis. The meeting was supposed to be in like a week. And they sent me, and I still have it, the original. They wrote a synopsis of the first novel.
Oh my goodness!
And it was like a 3-page synopsis, and most people pitching this, a lot of people in the town weren't as familiar with Robert Jordan's work as they were with Tolkien and with others, right? And so they created those synopses for that purpose, and a lot of people pitched off of that, right? I said, no, I've got 1 week. It's a 1,000-page novel. I'm going to get through it, right? And I did. I mean, just locked myself up for a week and read the whole damn thing, right? And I was ready for the pitch, right? And so, but then when I didn't get the gig, I didn't really look further into it, even though I had studied the mythology at the time. So, for number one, I'm going to apologize to all the Wheel of Time enthusiasts who are like, well, he's mispronouncing the character's name, he's forgetting something, because it's 12 years ago, and just Be patient.
I can't pronounce any of them now, and I've read the book several times through.
All right. And I tried to how to pronounce it on the show because I'm not watching it, and so this is my effort to reconstruct it. So when I pitched them first, I gave all I said let me share. I'm going to do a feature film pitch, and then I think you can adapt this to television because I've worked a lot in television and I'm more known in television. That's probably one of the reasons they didn't give me the gig, because this whole town's like, you could be the biggest TV writer in the world, but unless you have one of your movies made, they don't think you can write a movie. I'm like, I've sold like multiple movies to movie studios. It just haven't been made yet because it's a studio system, right? They sit there in the libraries of these studios, but they don't presume you can do it. I'm like, I got my Writers Guild card because I wrote movies that sold to studios or whatever. So, but that's how the system is. But nonetheless, I took it on with a challenge. So I said, okay, I'll present you this. I'll go through the movie version of it, and then I will go through, how I would have turned that into a series, right? How would I have broken it into a series? And again, keep in mind, this is 2010. This is 2010, and so the world was a little bit different, back then. And so nowadays, we didn't really have. I think Hulu had begun by then, but we didn't really have Netflix as a player. We didn't have any of these things going on. So we were thinking in terms of selling this to HBO or some version of it to ABC at the time. And that's where our brains were. And so that's how we thought of it, right? So what I did was first I gave the reason why I thought that the project would be compelling. As someone who hadn't been familiar with the world before I was approached, right? I got into it and I said, okay, I read the book. I said, this is a really good book. And I said, I understand why there's similarities to Tolkien, but why it is so compelling. And as I was reading it, I noticed something that I thought has got to be really pivotal to the style of how you do this project, whether it's a movie or as a book, is that, and it's hidden within there, that this isn't Lord of the Rings, but this is prehistoric Earth, right? Where even the map, you kind of see like that you see the boot of Italy in the map hidden, right? You see that this is Earth before the continent split up, right? Some ancient Earth, right? And then we later learn the mythologies before the world became round, that kind of thing, right? So as I read it, I realized, wait a minute, this is the future. This is the future, right? This is, our civilization was destroyed. This is like Planet of the Apes, right? Yep. That's what this is, and it's hidden in the book. You find it, because these people don't know their legacy for the most part. I mean, they don't really know how they got in the situations that they're in, and so they find remnants of technology that they don't know how to describe. But if you understand what they're describing, you're like, well, that's a stopwatch. That's this. That's that. Right? Right? I mean, am I correct in my understanding of this world? Right?
Yeah, I had a great time. I mean, there's all these Easter eggs. There's like the fight of what was it, Merc and something else. Alex,
Mosk and Merc.
Mosk and Merc. So it was like America versus Russia.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So it's like the idea. Yeah, and the idea of like the whole world has been like just basically like a snow globe and shooken up. That's why you get the Aiel, and they're like basically Celtic people living in the middle of the desert. And then there's all these different groups everywhere that like, hey, these people don't live in this area. So you're like, oh, what happens?
Right.
And
right. So this is and I pitch it out as something like the legends of Atlantis, right? The idea now at this time in 2022, 2023, you're beginning to see shows appearing with Graham Hancock now doing Netflix series about right? That was cool back in 2010, right? But the idea that civilization has essentially been reset in our world, that we are the remnants of the once great technological civilization, Atlantis, Lemuria, whatever you want to call it, that destroyed itself, and all we have are legends like the flood legend to keep us going. And that the pyramids are like the last remnant of that. We don't even know. We think they were built by Egyptians, but they were built before by the Atlanteans, that kind of thing, right? So that is something, because personally I think that's probably a true view of our history. I think we are.
Me too, I know.
We talked about that. We are. The Ice Age was the end of a great technological world that's been erased and set us back to the quote unquote stone age.
How dare you?
I'm kidding. This is our race memory. This is our DNA memory of our human experience. And who knows, maybe in time that's happened multiple times, right? And that was what I think Jordan was vibing into in this world.
Yeah, definitely.
What has happened before will happen again, sort of like, Battlestar.
The Wheel of Time.
The Wheel of Time. And that's implied in it. And that was fun. So I said, first of all, just the motif of this is you're going to have to sprinkle throughout these little hints, right? It can't just be like, it can't, because as far as I know, there's no great moment like, finding the Statue of Liberty in the desert that helps you understand the context, right? You just have to sprinkle it throughout that people are getting this vibe that this is something. This isn't Lord of the Rings. This is something else all entirely, and that's just sort of sprinkled in the background of props and and language and things like that. And so they were intrigued by that, because I'm not sure they were fully aware of that, but they were like, oh, that's really interesting, right? And so so with that in mind, so I said, okay, so let's jump into a movie version of this. So here's my movie version, right? So the movie version, I started off with a great prologue. I said it'll be like the grand epic opening, where you start up with Luz the Dragon, right? And you show this epic thing of him, killing his family under the madness of power, and then he learns the truth from Morin, right? Basically, he kills himself by turning into the giant dragon mountain. Is that right? That all sound right? It's 13 years ago. That's right?
Yes, perfect.
That sounds right. Because at the time I was like, that's really exciting. And so we'd open up with this grand, we'd open up with this grand epic thing that establishes the mythos, just like Tolkien did with Sauron. You needed to know who Sauron was before you got to the Shire and everything else, right? Because actually, Jackson did, because Tolkien didn't do that. Yep. Tolkien, it took you a long time to figure out what the hell's going on, who this Dark Lord is, and that was his style, right? But Jackson understood you can't start a movie like that. You gotta get people to understand the parameters of the world, who the adversary is, what the history of it is. Okay,
and I'm just gonna interject here and say, just as from a writing standpoint, that prologue does so much, because it gives you the backstory. It establishes how the magic system works, what happens that make men who use the power dangerous, and kind of just sets the stage. It does so much in a little time, and I could see doing that as just like a cold opening of a TV show or like a movie or something, and this is like all you see, and it doesn't make any sense at first, but when you get on, it makes more sense.
You'll keep referring back to these events, and then you'll be able to piece together what this means for the people. There's an incredible novel which I would love to review someday if any of you have ever read it. There's a great fantasy novel called Tigana by Guy Gabriel Kay. Are any of you familiar with this novel?
No.
So Guy Gabriel Kay is an incredible fantasy writer. He wrote the Fiona of Our Tapestry, which is another sort of Lord of the Rings type trilogy, right? But set more with Arthurian motifs, right? But it's a book a friend of mine told me to read 20 years ago, and I was so blown away by that was long before I became a screenwriter. And when I became a screenwriter, I actually reached out to Guy Gabriel Kay, who's a best-selling author. I emailed him and said, I'd love to take Tigana and turn it into like a series and pitch it, like it's a fantasy world. And he came on board, and we came up with this pitch together, and I pitched it all around town. I pitched it at Showtime and all these places that I've worked and whatever. And everyone told me there's no market for magic and swords and sandals and dragons. And a week after everyone passed, Game of Thrones is announced. A week after. So basically, there's a market from me.
Oh, man.
There's a market from David Benioff, and that's how the town works, right?
Man, can you,
I want to buy something from you.
Can you believe if Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time were going at the same time on different networks? Like, actually, like Wheel of Time done well. Like, what
Game of Thrones? It was a different, right?
Yeah, it would have just the yin and the yang, like, because they're similarities, but they're much different. And just like, God, what a freaking time to be a watcher of television if both of those were going at the same time. Man, what a missed opportunity.
So here I'm wearing my Dartmouth sweatshirt. So I went to Dartmouth, and guess who else?
I was gonna ask, the dark green is looking good.
Yeah, Dartmouth. So I went to Dartmouth. That was my college. I went there for my MBA. I wrote my first screenplay in a business school accounting class. I was so, I don't know what the hell was going on in that accounting class. Right? I just couldn't make the balance sheet balance. The reason I'm referencing this is who else went to Dartmouth when I was there? David Benioff. He and I were classmates. And
my goodness.
David was 1 year ahead of me. He was class of 92. I was class 93. I didn't know him at the time because he was in the cool club. He was in the popular club.
Did you take
the world didn't change till 30 years later? He's in the cool club, and they're buying Game of Thrones from me, and I wasn't cool, so they weren't buying my fantasy show from me. They're buying it from him, right? So that's injustice. But the reason I bring up Tigana, to bring it back to Wheel of Times, is that Tigana, the friend who told me to read the book, he said there's a very long prologue. That's like 40, 50 pages. It's long, right? And he said it can feel like you don't know what the hell's happening. You don't know why this matters. And the prologue is over, and then you don't meet any of these characters again. You jump forward like 30 years, right? But you come to understand that the battle in the prologue was the battle that created the world that they exist in now, right? Decades later. So you understand that, and then I will only say that because the book is incredible and worth reading. If you're a fantasy novel reader, it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. Because what it is, it's about. All right, I'm going to take a moment to take off Wheel of Time. I'm going to bring it back to Wheel of Time because I love Tigana. So the concept of Tigana very quickly is that there's this battle between an invading king. King Brandon is invading this land called Tigana, and you see the opening of the battle in the prologue, and you don't know what happens. The novel starts off 20 years later, where Brandon obviously won that battle and conquered Tigana, and his son died in the battle. And so he was so filled with rage at the death of his son. He was a great magician, and he cast a spell on the people of Tigana and erased their memory of ever having been an independent nation. They imagine themselves to have always been ruled by the royal family of Brandon. They have no sense of their independent identity, except the spell doesn't work on a few people who start waking up, and they remember that they are a conquered people, and they start leading a rebellion, but they can't convince anybody else that they were ever independent, right? And so it's all about waking everybody else, like the Matrix, right? And so the first half of the novel is told from the rebels' point of view about how the great rebels defeating this evil tyrant that has crushed their nation and erased their memory. The second half of the novel is told from Brandon's point of view, and you realize he's the hero of the story. These are terrorists, these are insurgents, these are and so you see this point of view, right? And so then by the end of the novel, when there's the final climax between Brandon and the rebels in the great battle, you care about both of them, and you see that both of them think that they're right.
I like that.
When one side wins,
awesome.
You're heartbroken because you're cheering, and at the same time you're crying for the other side because the characters are so deep. And the reason I'm bringing it is that now, bringing it back to real time, that opening that you thought, why do I care about this 50-page battle that we're not going to come back to again? We will come back, because the final sequences of the final battle all come out of that first one. And if you don't understand the first battle, and the characters that you thought were long gone reappear at the end of this novel, and it comes full circle and it hits you in the gut, where you realize all the scores that needed to be settled from that first battle get settled in the end of the novel. And it's so perfectly balanced. And so that's the kind of thing I wanted to do with the Wheel of Time, is create a balanced sort of story that comes full circle, because that's where you find fulfillment, right? So let's get back to Wheel of Time. So we start off with this grand epic prologue, right? And then you're cutting forward, and this is when you get into the world that we know. You meet Rand and his father, right? And you see them, and you see their lives, and you know, in Act 1 of this movie, you'd meet them, and then you'd have the pivotal moment where they see the Black Rider. Let me get the pronunciation right. Myrddraal. Did I get it right?
Myrddraal. You got it. Yeah. Better than me. I butchered it way worse. You actually were pretty dang close. Spot on.
I was going to say, you're a little too hard on yourself. The official audiobook reader has worse pronunciation than you do. So don't beat yourself up too bad.
He's still a legend, all right? Leave Michael Kramer alone. All right, come on.
No, I'm not talking about Michael Kramer. I'm talking about Michael Kramer's wife. But
okay. Well, leave Kate Redding alone.
All right, here we go. So we can meet Myrddraal, and then we're gonna arrive to Eamon's Field, and that's where we're gonna meet these friends, Matt and Perrin, and we hear of the false dragon, right? Story and all that stuff. And that's now that we're getting a sense of who these characters are, then we would then do flashback and epic story where Tom tells stories of the past. So we get a sense now of what the past of this world is, at least in relation to our heroes. So now we're starting off the movie. We've had this thing we don't fully understand yet, but now we figured out who our heroes are. There's got this sort of menacing Black Rider thing going on, and now we start learning the legends and stories of the past, right? And then that's where we're going to meet Egwene and Nynaeve.
Nailed it.
Rain and Lan and all these people, right? And then the pivotal moment in Act 1 is when the Trolloc attack the inn. Okay, that's gonna be this pivotal set piece that was gonna be the movie. And then Rand and Tam, they escape. Tam's injured, and Rand takes his sword. And then we have this great heroic moment. Rand's gonna kill the Trolloc, and and it takes his father to Moraine to be healed. And that's where Moraine, again using flashback and grand visual storytelling, tells the story of King Aemon, right?
Oh my god, I know, that's like the best part when she goes.
Did they do any of this stuff?
Did
they do any of this stuff in the show?
No.
Rand kills a Trolloc, but it's not heroic in any way, really.
He doesn't even use. Does he use the sword?
Yeah.
No, he stabs him with a fire poker.
Yeah, fire poker. Yeah, it doesn't even use the sword.
It's one Trolloc that wipes out Tam. Okay. And then while he's trying to kill Tam, Rand sneaks up behind him and stabs him with a fire poker.
Yeah.
Well, I had the sword. I see it in my notes. The sword was being used in my version.
I'm curious. In your version, is the forest trudge with Rand and his father? Would you have included that? Because that's one of my favorite scenes of the whole book of Rand
Repeat it
muttering.
again. I'm looking at my notes. What scene? The forest? What?
So right after Rand saves his father, you know, Tam is of course in really bad shape, and it's the him trying to save Tam by pulling him from his farmstead back to Moraine to try and save his life.
That's all there. That's all there. That's the whole.
So they didn't include any of that. Yeah,
okay,
so they pulled all that out. So it because that's one of the most moving scenes. That scene gets me every time. So
and then it's like that's the moment.
That scene was taken literally from Robert Jordan's Vietnam War experience. I mean, there's a reason that one hits like a truck. That one's from right here.
Yeah, someone's taking injured compatriot to try to get help while they're in a dangerous situation. It feels visceral.
Well, and plus all the inward monologue of Rand, because the whole Tam isn't my father thing slips out, and it's like, what's going on, right?
I mean, I couldn't believe they didn't include that with the show, because that's basically like they try to make this mystery box of who is the dragon. It could be a guy, it could be a girl, and it's like, well, the magic system works in a very specific way, so it actually can't be a girl. And the ramifications of it being...
you're denying girls their agency in this toxic male story, so I didn't have any of that, so whatever. So all right, so we had this whole sequence, because I'm looking at my notes here. We had the whole sequence of taking it back to Moraine. It was a big scene, right? The big scene, all that would have been in there, and you had the Story King Aemon, and then, you know, Egwene joins them, and Tom comes, so you know you're getting a little fellowship happening. Right? And then you've got the dream of, you know, you got this thing where he's got the dream of his destiny, right? And then they end up being chased by the Myrddraal, and you know, you have the separation with the father, right? And so, you know, the where we climax, we go from there. We went to, okay, here's more stuff. The Draghar attacks as the Draghar.
Draghar,
talking that out of it for.
Yeah, I think you're lying. You practiced. You're getting all the pronunciation quite close, if not perfect.
Looks like what I wrote here. I don't know. I mean,
it's good. You're right.
Yeah.
So we got this cool scene. I had of Morgaine fighting the Draghar and destroying the ferry, and you know, Egwene sort of unwittingly helps them. Which, you know, I guess, you know, the idea is in this version Egwene can't, you know, unwittingly help us, because you gotta have a super powerful woman always on top, right? This is sort of like, these people aren't heroes yet. They're bumbling through this, right? They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, they don't know.
Heads, right? They're like the hobbits. They don't know what the hell's going on, right? And so this is all too big for them. And then in that moment, Egwene learns about her powers, right? And you're like, holy shit, right? And so we're now beginning to culminate the end of Act 1 of my pitch, which is, you know, they arrive at Barillon and they hear about these children of night fanatics, right? And then the end of Act 1 is where Rand has the dream of the Balsamon, right? And gets his first hint of his destiny, and he sees the image of the dragon in a mirror, and that's the end of your Act 1.
Oh, that would have been fantastic.
Did they do any version of anything like that?
No.
No Barillon at all.
The only time Rand successfully uses a sword is to kill himself in a vision he has.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
They don't even go to Barillon. They skip Barillon completely.
Well, I remember. I think the Children of Night stuff was interesting. How could you skip that?
They meet him on the road. Like they meet him on the road and like have a 5-minute thing and then go about their business. That's how they introduce the White Cloaks. So. It's you'd be because I unfortunately I have to run. I have to run. No. I have to run. I'm not. Zach is waiting for me to explode. No.
Out of here. That's it.
Well, no. I only. No. I'm going to be lurking.
I'm like 5 minutes into the pitch. Zach just gets up and leaves. That's happening.
No,
you just get up and leave without explanation.
No, I'm going to be lurking here because I had committed to something else before I knew this was happening. So, so I'm gonna be lurking because this is
come back if you can.
Absolutely no, because look, I'm enjoying the hell out of this, like 100%. Because, God, man, like if you saw
what we could have had, dude.
Carmen, like, and this is the first time we're talking. If you just I could tell just from your passion right here, if you even saw 5 minutes of the show like we've had, you'd be like, what the hell is going on, right? So,
that's my entire career. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I'm sure, right? Yeah, absolutely. But,
Los Angeles all day long. What's happening here? Well, you realize that you're basically like, you know, the straight man in this big joke. Like that's what I've discovered. I'm the straight man in this big joke. That's Hollywood, right? I'm just like I'm like Abbott, right? I'm surrounded by Costellos running around being crazy. I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah, but Lady B, sorry, Ryan's chirping at me, my son, and but if I get no, it's not even as big as that. It's just something he's doing. So I promise. So
yeah, it's cool. We didn't expect you to come. We're glad to have you.
I'm glad I got to be here this long,
Steve.
And I'll be in the chat, Carmen.
Yeah, thank you.
I love your version so far. Looking forward to hearing the rest, because so far you're spot on, my man.
Cameron, you can call him Stefan if you want.
Okay.
And I'm the only ginger on the panel, so according to Zach. So
I will. All of you have hair, so screw you, right?
All right. Okay. All right. Hopefully, I can come back for a little bit, but I'll be in the chat.
Give me 5 seconds. I'm going to cut my screen for 5 seconds because I got to take care of something here. But I'm going to continue. Give me 5 seconds. I'm going to let you go. Take 5 seconds. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
all
yeah,
right, so,
we're gonna do this. So, Steve, is there anything you have coming up on your channel? Any cool thing you're gonna do?
I mean, I got the Cosmere stuff happening here soon. Aldan wrote to help me write a whole big script, so we're working on that.
Oh, goodness. I know he's gonna make me read it, so I'm looking forward to that.
So that's gonna be, once I can get that out, that's sort of gonna, I think, open up the floodgates for Cosmere stuff, because I want to get sort of it's an overarching sort of idea what the Cosmere is, so anybody that hasn't read it sort of gets an idea. And then, Cosmere throw up all over the channel probably, because I love Cosmere. So, but Carmen, it's been a pleasure. Lady B, as always. Zax, I hate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great night, and good luck with your other stream. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, anytime. I hopefully I can come back for a little bit, but I will be in the chat because I'm loving this so far. This is the stuff that gets me all riled up. So thank you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Sweet. Take care.
Bye.
All right. So Alex wants me to share something.
Please share something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna. He wants you to show you the white. These are the white cloaks from the show.
Okay, let me see this.
And I feel like this image is
That's their armor.
What? Because it highlights how terrible the armor is, the ridiculousness of their haircuts, the fact that the white cloaks aren't wearing white cloaks. I feel like this one image just perfectly encapsulates sort of the lack of effort, the lack of energy. Why do they have fresh ass fades? Why
are they wearing white in the forest? Come on, that's
and yet that armor. Are they trying to protect their shoulder from something? I don't get what
on
what
their
that,
shield
what
arm, not on their sword arm. Oh my goodness!
Just the one arm. Just the one arm's fine.
To prevent you from stabbing just specifically from that angle. What about the other angle? I don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna say hi. We got Bruce Lombardo, Dick's Division here, and we also had somebody else here. AJ is here too. Robin Nason, AJ, Mr. Typical Trunk. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for coming out. But yeah, this is insane. I mean, just what are they even wearing? They look like they're wearing dresses.
Well, look, it's clear, it's obvious that the people that did this thing at the end of the day didn't care about it. That's obvious, right? And so, they're just phoning it in from everything I'm seeing and hearing. And I was new to the property when I came up with this pitch, right? And I could tell what was exciting about it because I was new to it, right? It almost feels like the 15 years it took to develop it. They're also jaded by the end. They just like, damn it, we got something on the air, we'll just do it, right? And they didn't think it out too much.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just can't really believe that this had a $90 million budget. I'm like, that's a pretty big movie.
I was saving that. I want to hear Cameron's response to the budget.
What was it? $90 million, $100 million for the entire thing, or for
$100 million,
$100 million for 8 episodes.
Okay, so we're talking about approximately 12 plus million per episode, right? Yeah, I mean, it sounds like one of those things where you're like, where did the money go, right? Yeah. It seems like it might be $50 million for the show, $50 million for the executives, right? It might be one of those situations, right? If these are the kind of costumes we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so bad, and it's the set, there is, you have the Shutter logo set is the same set as Tar Valon. They just turn the lights off. They just have some baffling, they keep choosing to do special effects over practical stuff, and I just, there's little things there's some audio stuff that isn't right. I mean, my other thing I did when I was in college, I did audio engineering, so I tend to notice that kind of stuff more. They use lighting, like use color grading to hide bad lighting, which is a huge freaking like nitpick of mine. I just hate that. And yeah.
So I don't know. So this is it is what it is. So let me continue. I'll tell you more
Yes,
what I came up
we
with.
want to hear your story instead of talking about this trash wreck of a show.
So got the first act, which ends with this, so seeing the dragon in the mirror, and he's like, holy shit, what does this mean, right? And so Act 2 was going to start off, now we're adding the real supernatural events of it. So we've got Matt and Perrin, they're having nightmares, and Min sees these visions of the future. So now in the second part of this movie, we've crossed the threshold of like, okay, this is part of some grand destiny, the wheel of time. And so time is becoming non-linear. That's all pitching, right? So now that we've crossed that threshold, people start having dreams, start having visions. It starts accelerating, right? And so that becomes sort of what the second half of this is, and you've got, where did it culminate? Let's see. Where did it culminate? Let's see. The midpoint, the story develops, and I can go through each individual beat, but the story develops where Rand basically channels power to escape the Dark Friends, and he's like, "What the fuck just happened?" Does that sound like it makes sense?
Yes,
that's how I would have done it.
That's where the midpoint of the movie, you'd be like, "Oh shit!" Right? Okay. So now you enter a world where these people, it's not just because the first half of that is just entering into a world where where dreams and time are being bent, and then you're seeing actual powers being revealed, and so these people are beginning to realize that they're more than they imagine themselves to be.
The Dark Friend reveal became a Benny Hill skit.
It did,
in the show.
honestly.
I'm not joking. It really did. It really did become a Benny Hill skit.
Who made it? I think Wycliffe didn't add it up. You did it too.
Yeah.
We both did.
Yeah. Independently of each other, we made the same style of clip because it was like it was the Benny Hill chase. She was chasing Matt and ran through the streets. It was unbelievably hilarious. Yeah.
So Kamran, I want you to imagine
okay.
if they took you, made you 5'6",
okay,
gave you a terrible septum piercing and a bad wig, and had you chase around Rand and Matt. That was the Dark Friend.
That's supposed to be threatening. That's supposed to be like the big like dark force I'm dealing with.
That was the only Dark Friend that Rand and Matt encountered in the book, or in the show, in the entire 8 episodes.
The book, because my pitch has plural. That seems to be what my documents say here. Yes. So it would have been scary. It would have been intense, right? Because you have to intensify, because you are building up to this. Is at the time they're talking about whatever $100 million movies. And in those days, 100 million was big. Now 200 million, 300 is the norm, right? Whatever. In those days, 100 million was big. And so you gotta climax the middle of the movie with a big epic attack, right? Right.
Yep.
And and then I'll talk to how we would do it as a series. But in a movie, that's where you climax at, and it can't be one dude running around.
Oh, it was a woman.
That's anticlimactic, yes. Okay. So all right. So let's see where we go. So after that we had. So we went up. We go from that midpoint, we go from there to Perrin having this nightmare of the Balsamon attacking the wolf, right? And then Nene, Moraine, and Lon, they arrive at the White Bridge, and Moraine senses the others were here, but they've left. And now you got Perrin and the company, they're pursued by the Ravens, and they found the carved eye of Arthur. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. The big statue.
Yeah, big statue, right? And then that second half, after the midpoint, you have one of the big turning points is you've got Perrin's going to be, Perrin and Egwene, they're captured by the Children of Light, and their poor wolf gets killed. So it's going to be a very sad thing. And then Perrin kills 2 of the children, but they get taken prison to Amador. So that would have been sort of around, let's say, halfway through the movie. So it's around like. It's about now about an hour and 10 minutes into the movie or so. Okay, so now you've got all those things. It's accelerating for these people at that level. There's tragedy, there's intensity happening, and so we're getting closer to the end of Act 2. And so from there, you got Rand and Matt. They're traveling the countryside. They're looking for food. Again, this isn't the way I pitch it. It was much more dramatic. I was literally looking at these old notes. So they're stealing from that farmer, and they're chasing all that. And then Rand tells Matt to sell his dagger for the money, right? And that's actually an emotional sacrifice, right? And then then we got a little bit of the little flirtation with the daughter, Elsie, whatever. Remember? And then what do you got here? and then they take refuge. I'm sorry, what? Did Elsie show up in this show or no?
Els Grimwell? No, she's not. Because why? They don't travel.
Els Grimwell was 6 years old and killed by a Murdrell.
Yeah.
That's the version of events in the show?
Yep.
Okay, well, I thought it was an interesting character. I don't know why you kill her off at 6. I mean, you got to give a hero a sense of like a romantic other, right? And that's kind of what Jordan was trying to do. And so and then they take refuge in the Hawal Goats Inn, but then they find out that he's a dark friend who wants to take them to his master. And this, then Rand channels his power. It's been one of the big climactic moments in the movie. Rand channels his power to blow a hole open in the wall, and they escape. And Matt's eyesight's damaged by the blast. You're like, oh shit, right? What's going to happen to these characters now? And so now we're culminating to sort of the end of Act 2, which is Rand and the team. They end up getting reunited. They learn they have to travel through the waves to get to Faldara and the Eye.
Yeah.
Do they go to the waves? Do they do any of this stuff?
Yeah, they go to the waves, but the funny thing is, like, if they come to Washington, right? Except Washington is just like Mean Girls there, so they just tell them the truth about things.
They run out of stories. Why would that be the way they get the information? Okay.
Well, do you want to explain it, Alex? Because it's like.
Can you explain it? Because that doesn't sound right to me.
It's
Can
silly.
Can I cut in for just a second? Just 1 second. I want to pimp Cameron's Patreon, where I'm a member of his Patreon, and so it's in the chat right now. People are talking about it in the chat, so I thought it's a good time to bring it up. He's extremely active on his Patreon. It's very valuable. I highly recommend checking it out. I've been a member there for months now, and it's awesome. So if you haven't looked at it, please go look at it.
We'll talk about it at the end. We'll talk about it at the end of the thing, but because I just posted a major intel drop from inside Lucasfilm, because I have a spy inside Disney, and I've identified them like a major spy who has a thing against Kennedy, and I know who they are, and they've been leaking very big intel, and so I've just got all this intel I just dumped on what's happening.
I know. I needed to on your
It's
Patreon.
awesome.
We'll do it at the end. We're gonna do today is Wheel of Time. At the end, I'll share with you, because you'll be the first person to hear this intel on a YouTube live stream for those who aren't on the Patreon. But that just happened. Literally, I hit press post before I came onto this live stream. So that's breaking news. That's going to really piss off the people at Lucasfilm that I got it out there. It's going to really anger them. And it's whatever. Maybe they should be making better shows. They wouldn't have people inside their own company sabotaging them. It's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Let the record reflect there are no fans of Lucasfilms on this chat, I believe. Probably not on the channel in general.
What you're going to discover is there's no fans of Lucasfilm inside of Lucasfilm. it's literally like Hitler's bunker in the last days of World War II, where every man for themselves. I mean, that's what it is, right?
God, man, that's so bad. Back to Wheel of Time.
And nobody Wheel of Time cares enough to even leak from the Wheel of Time production, because nobody cares enough to care to leak.
This is very true. So, Lady Balefire, you wanted me to explain something, and I apologize. I got excited about Star Wars.
You have a funny way of explaining things, so tell about the show Mush and Sin.
Okay, so imagine Regina George from Mean Girls.
I love her. That's the kind of girl I love her.
Is just like whispering all of the characters' insecurities in their brain. And then, like, they all get scared and stop running. And then Nynaeve goes.
Kind of thing? It's like telepathic?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, Rand, you're a simp.
Yes. And then Nynaeve goes full Vegeta Super Saiyan and, like, blasts the shadow away. And then they all run out.
Okay. Don't have that high pitch. None of that happened there.
Yes.
All right. So it sounds like basically they didn't know what they were doing. They just made it up as they went along. That feels like, from what you're describing, because it just feels like people making it up as they go along and not trusting the source material to provide the solutions.
See, Cameron, I want to believe you, because if I believe that they were just making it up as they go along, that means that there's potential for improvement. My tremendous fear is that this was them doing their best.
Well, I'm sure
just all they're capable of.
I'm sure it was them doing their best. Like like Lucasfilm, those clowns are doing their best. That's just not a very high standard.
Okay, but when I say doing their best, I mean they actually did like their due diligence, and they thought these would be great plot beats. Months before filming, they wrote everything out, and they're like, "We love this," and then they just made it, and everybody was like, "Why did you do this? This is horrible." but I digress.
The process that you're describing is the opposite of the process that I experienced. So I'm pitching this. I could tell that the executive, including some of these people, you know, I have a list of the execs I pitched to. There were a bunch of people at Universal there. There were these people from whatever, Red Dragon, whatever the hell the company was, right? And so they were all there. And there was like, when I was pitching, you could see their body language. I remember this. You could see because I thought I had the gig. I thought I got it at the end of the pitch. I was like, and then we'll get back to you. And I never heard back from them, right? But at the pitch, you can tell their body language is interested. They're leaning forward. They're looking at each other. They're smiling and whatever. And so all this stuff is happening, right? And then you know, I didn't hear anything more. So because I wasn't whatever in their list of people that was acceptable to write the show, I wasn't on that list. And so they kept trying to find somebody on that list, and they couldn't find anybody on that list to do a better job than I did. And I've been in this position when you have the best pitch, but you're not on the list and nobody can top it, the project goes away. Right?
Yeah, that is really
difficult. You have to have somebody for the pitch, and literally, and you'll know when that's happening when they'll say, "You've got the pitch to beat," which means they're looking for someone to beat it. They'll use that phrase. That's your trigger phrase. You're done. We'll back it up. They've got a bunch of friends, and they're hoping desperately that one of their friends comes up with something better. Because if they take your pitch in, their boss will be like, "What the hell's Kamran Pasha? He's a TV guy. He worked on whatever. We're gonna give him $100 million to make this movie." No, go back to the guy who made that big other epic that I know, right?
I know, it's so annoying. I found out I was like, I wanted to be a director, right? And I looked at the I think it was like some kind of like a guild for women directors or something like that. And it was like I was looking for mentorship. I was looking to shadow somebody for a day or something like that. They wouldn't even let me approach them until I had actually directed and had a movie and IMDb credit and stuff as a director. And I'm like, so I literally have to put out a movie and have it shown somewhere and get the credit for it before you'll even talk to me?
Yeah, by which time you will be far beyond them and no longer interested in this project, right? Mm-hmm. But there's the politics of these people are trying to, look, everyone is just trying to keep their jobs. Mm-hmm. And I know what off value I bring to the table. I'm a writer. Yeah. I write scripts. I know how to do that. I know how to adapt projects. I know how to take something that's in this format and make it work in this format. That's my skill. A great many executives have no skill whatsoever that they can sell. Their only skill, not all, I will be fair, not all. I'm currently working with some very smart executives on the project I'm working on, the TV project. Well, but in general, that's often a common thing where the only reason you got the job is because, you know, you had a buddy who got you into the company. You don't really know what your job is to do. And your job seems to be to just survive and knock your competition inside the company out of the way, right? Everyone's just backstabbing each other. So that's the only skill. Like the actual idea of, you know, and part of that is, you know, if I go to my boss with an unknown, at least to him, writer in this field, then he's be like, you can't find anybody better. You know, where's the Oscar-winning dude? Do you have any Oscar-winning dude that can come up with
I know, they always want like the hot person, and it's like maybe this isn't the most talented person, or maybe we don't want another like. After like I was working for a company and I was reading scripts and you know Get Out had just come out and I read so many.
What's our next Get Out?
I'm like, stop writing this crap. It's garbage. You're not going to have the Get Out because it'll only be like one Get Out
deal. Get Out's a one-time deal, one and done. You don't do that movie again. It's like 6 seconds. Yes. Right.
Yes,
maybe
totally.
Close to the others, but that's about it, right? But so it's no, so whatever. So you could tell all these people were excited, and at the end they're like. You could tell I'd sold it at least in the sense that I understood what I was talking about, and they could visually. The good thing when I'm actually in pitch mode, people can visually see it in their heads, and that's what I'm good.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so you could tell, and then they're like, "We'll get back to you." And I knew when that was it, it was like, okay, they're going to get back to each other and say, "All right, well, we now know how the story can work. So let's find somebody on the list."
Yeah, let's find someone else. Like this is a great idea, but you're not going to be on it.
If the person isn't coming up with it from themselves. They won't be able to create the same effect.
Right? Yeah, exactly, because they don't understand it. And I mean, like, we have, like, the showrunner for the Amazon show is Rafe Judkins.
Who's that?
He lost on Survivor. He was a contestant on Survivor who didn't win. That was his big prior to this.
I'm looking this up. You're kidding, right?
No, and they gave him God of War.
The worst season of Chuck.
So he was involved in Chuck.
The last season of Chuck. The season of Chuck that got Chuck canceled.
Okay. He came from Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Okay, all right. When I was up, I was at a very big agency at the time, and I really enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it was just like dumb, stupid ABC stuff, right? And I liked it, and the chicks on it were hot and whatever. So I wanted to be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I actually asked my agents, "Can you get me a meeting?" Because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was hiring. And they're like, buddy, this is so far beneath you. I'm like, yeah, I know, yeah, but it's fun and dumb, and there's pretty girls on it, whatever. They're like, no, we're not going to put you up for this. I'm like, and I was like, so this dude doesn't Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? So whatever. So all right, so this is, at least I will give this person more credit. He has more credits than the guys who made Lord of the Rings, who have one credit.
Right.
Which is
Yes.
Lord of the
You're
Rings. They have only one credit. The only thing they've ever done before Lord of the Rings is nothing.
I'm like,
Literally,
how
like,
do these
no credits? Never been on a
get
set
a
before. Here's
job?
$1 million.
Like, how did this happen, Cameron? It's like,
well, how that in both of these cases,
there's the feminist politics that were involved in that.
Sure.
Jennifer Salke wanted Lindsay Weber. Lindsay Weber wanted peons. These were the perfect peons that she'd worked with previously.
That they would do whatever she said because they have no experience. I mean, my staff writers on my last show had more experience than these guys. So. And then they wouldn't know what's good or bad. They're like, hey, yeah, boss, what do we want? That's what we're gonna do. Yeah. Galadriel jumps off a sword at the beginning. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go with it, right?
yes.
They don't know what's good. They don't know what's good because they've never done anything before. So how would you know? So whatever. So this guy, okay, well, he's got this background in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and survival. God bless him, whatever. So yeah,
better
but
than
again,
nothing.
What's happening at Amazon, certainly in the regime at the time of these projects, Real Time and this Rings of Power thing, was literally just Bezos saying, bring me stupid people who will do whatever I say, right? Because his vision was, Jeff Bezos's vision was, because he's a James Bond villain, right? So not only does he annihilated the world's retail economy, so little mom and pop stores are all out of business, right? And then all you do is buy from them, and then the workers who work inside of his distribution system are all slaves, right? So you're literal slaves, right? I mean, people in Dubai are like, hey, they're kind of like the slaves we got over here, right? And so they get it, right? And so that's aside from that wasn't enough for him, that he's taken over the world economy with slaves. He's like, well, I want to be known as the new Tolkien. I want to be known as the new Robert Jordan. So I'm going to create these shows, and I'm going to bring these buffoons in there who are going to do what I say from behind the scenes through my underlings or whatever, who are going to be the little, worm tongues, or say, this is what we're going to do. It's all coming from him. And because anybody else, like Lord of the Rings, I will share with you this. I'm a screenwriting board with all these very famous screenwriters, much more famous than me. And when the Ring of Powers premiered, someone finally broke the ice on there, because it's a private screenwriters board, and these guys weren't on it, right? Because it's like, you have to have some experience to have been in this board, right? And so they're on there. Anybody else watch the show? Does this show suck? And these are like famous Oscar-winning screenwriters. And so the whole world erupted into critiques of Ring of Powers from a storytelling. I took that and put it on my Patreon. If you go back, you'll see it on my Patreon. It's one of the funniest things. I just quote, I took off the names, but quote, famous screenwriters breaking down why Ring of Powers doesn't work and asking, how did this happen? How did these guys get $1 billion? I've got 2 Oscars. I pitched Lord of the Rings. I didn't even back to me.
I know. I am just baffled. I got to explain to you why this stuff drives me so crazy. Like, okay, so I went from being a English major, and when I was an English major, I did an internship with like a Christian family-oriented film thing. So I was reading development stuff, just working in the office, that kind of thing. And I ended up graduating college. I became a race car driver. I met more entertainment people because everyone wanted to option my story, do reality shows with me. So I learned about that. And then I ended up finding out about development and stuff because then people from Pixar contacted somebody that I knew, and they're like, hey, we're looking for people to consult for Cars 3. So I did a consultation job with them, and I'm actually there's a character in the movie that's kind of based on me, and that's really freaking cool. And I just thought, whoa, the development thing is really interesting. So yeah.
You're the worst character in Cars 3? You're the reason Cars 3 was terrible? I see it. I can.
You don't like Cruz Ramirez? Come on.
But you made those executives days because they're like, hey, I found an interesting character and I can keep my job because I'll pitch a whole story based on this person.
Yeah, so I spent a day basically pitching them my story. So it's like
they're all taking it down.
Yeah, so I like this is really cool. Like people do this for a living, and I didn't know that much because I didn't get out involved with the film industry. But then I went back after I got divorced went into film school, and then I'm like, oh my god, I love doing this, and I got so into it. And I'm a pretty decent writer. I'm really good. I'm a fast learner, and I got really into it. And I was just like, you learn to write. You learn that there's certain things with stories, and one of the great things in Wheel of Time is like you there's causality. Like to get them to leave Emmons Field, it's like you find out that Moraine says that, okay, the Madrals were targeting 3 people specifically, and you need to leave the village to protect the other people.
Around. There's a threat to specific people, and you gotta move.
Yes, there's just basics like that, and that was missing in the Amazon show. And I'm just like, I got so disheartened watching that because it's like I spent so much time learning this stuff, honing my craft, practicing, failing at stuff that I'm doing, and even stuff I write now because I'm like more doing like novels and stuff. I'm just like, I don't understand how this stuff is getting made. These people are just so incompetent. And at some point, like I'm seeing this and I'm looking at this is like $100 million when probably everything is said and done. It's like, how is this a sustainable business model?
It's not a sustainable business model, but understand who's a streamer? It's Amazon. This is not their business model. This is a loss leader. This is a loss leader. They don't care if they lose money on it. They only know is this is getting people to subscribe to Amazon Prime, which is where their money is. It's the same thing with Apple. Apple doesn't care if you don't watch their shows. It's a big form of marketing. So you go to the Apple store and you see ads, posters on the wall and pictures of all these big movie stars on their projects. You're like, wow, I could get an Apple. Like, literally, I finally started. I've had Apple for 2 years, never watched anything, and then I finally started watching. The what's it called? For All Mankind, which is actually a good show. But
which is my question.
Yes.
Why the hell is Apple TV trying so hard? Like Amazon has clearly phoned it in. Apple seems to care. Like because Severance is good.
The difference.
Ted Lasso's great.
Ted Lasso's great.
Apple sees itself as Tiffany, as HBO once saw itself before the flame out of Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. So it sees itself as a dominant part of world culture, because it's been creating the iPhones, where it sees itself as the bastion of creativity. That's the image that Steve Jobs left it for itself, right? Microsoft sees itself as the company that's the Borg, that assimilates you, it's not creative, and it copies everything. And that's its proud identity. Whereas Apple's identity is a creative company. And so they want to have a prestige. Even these Silicon Valley guys, they want to have the prestige of being creative geniuses like Jobs was. That's their motivation, right? Whereas Bezos, he's literally a James Bond villain. He just wants to control everything and you put his name on everything and be the guy. Like he's the new Tolkien, he's the new Jordan, he's new this. And so the last thing he wants is quality that can challenge him. Right, so I'm going to take
that's a good point.
My own Patreon thing, and this will apply to the Wheel of Time as well. But these are some of the anyone who's on my Patreon, go to October 3rd, 2022, the post from there where it's these long things. I'm just going to read a few of the lines here, and these are famous screenwriters who took their names out. Quote, famous screenwriter. From what I understand, this is Payne and McKay, the showrunners. We're talking about Lord of the Rings, Ring of Powers. This is Payne and McKay's vision. They simply don't know what they're doing. And they're working for the worst streamer, potent combo. Right? That's one comment, right? Now, another one is, could be the inexperienced showrunner won the job by pitching everything that every committee member wanted. So basically just sitting there with all these like Amazon buffoons, and everyone's like, well, I want a scene where Galadriel does this. I want to see a scene where we got the dwarf wife who does this, right? And, they nailed every one of these dumb things, and they put all the dumb things in there. And the whole show is literally like a collage of all these people's dumb moments that other pitches were ignoring because they were dumb. And then these guys just wisely incorporated all that dumb stuff into the show, and they got the gig.
Yeah. I mean, it's so sad. It's like, where is the storytelling? It's like, where are even the fundamentals of filmmaking? It's so silly.
On top of it. All right, so let me go back to Wheel of Time because that's what your viewers are here for. So let me finish off this thing. So the last we talked about was, we got, what was happening? We got the Rand and Matt encountered the Dark Friends.
We're at like kind of Act 3. You're going into Act 3.
Act 3. So we're approaching Act 3. We're still at the end of Act 2, and so Act 2 culminates with we've got Pater at Market Chiron and what the hell is this? And the women's stable, the Queen's Man, they try to kill Matt. Rand has visions of Egwene dead because of him, right?
Yes.
And they get a ride from Camelin, and who's been told there's a reward for 2 young guys like them. And then ultimately, we've got Master Gil, the innkeeper, recognizes Thomas's flute, doesn't believe he's dead, right? And then that whole section culminates with Rand meets Loyal, I think it's Loyal, mistakes him for Trolloc, and learns he is actually the good Ogiers. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Good.
makes so much sense.
Okay. And then
Just put the ball into the basket. Make the layup.
We're almost there. So end of Act 2. So this is a culmination of the end of Act 2, and then we're gonna have Act 3. The end of Act 2, which is getting together to lead the climactic crisis, right? And so you've got Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine. They rescue Perrin and Egwene as the wolves are attacking. So you've got that moment. You got Rand wants to see the Loghain false dragon who's being held prisoner.
Oh, I know.
Paraded before the Queen. They fall into the palace courtyard. Then you meet Princess Elaine and her brother Gawain and half brother Galad. And then the final sequences are Rand and the company. They arrive at Fal Dara and they travel through the Blight. So now, and then we have the scary monster attack in the Blight, right? And they meet the Queen Man who leads them to the Eye. And then Act 2 culminates with Rand and his buddy find the Eye of the World, but they're intercepted by the Forsaken. So da-da-da-da. So that's
big fight.
That's how. So now you're in this everything's gone terribly wrong for them. And Act 3 of my pitch was, so it basically, the Forsaken, the attack of the Eye of the World. You got this whole culminating with the Trollocs invade Fal Dara, and the Forsaken kill the Green Man, and so Moraine battles them. And then Rand he's chased by the Forsaken, and you have this huge battle between the Trollocs and the men. And finally, Rand uses the power of the Eye to destroy the Trolloc army, and he cuts the Balsamon cord, and ultimately Moraine realizes the dragon is reborn, and the movie culminates with the realization that the dragon is back, right?
Yeah, and Rand has his first big fight, and that's important because he needs to start doing the physical stuff. So when you get to the end, and he has a metaphysical battle, that makes more sense because he's already done the growth with the physical, and you realize that's the spiritual.
So that feel like a movie that would have worked. I think that movie would have worked.
I think that would have worked as a movie.
I think that would have worked as a movie, and I think that would have worked as a show.
And so that gets us into what I would have divided it. So then I was like, all right, well, there's the arc, and the arc has all these inherent twists and turns. So again, depending on how many episodes, if we turn it to let's say it was, if it was like a 6-episode order, we would break the show at pivotal moments, right? The pilot would probably end somewhere, where you've got. We've got they're being chased by the Myrddraal, right? That kind of thing, early, right? And then you have this thing of what happens with you got Morgan fights off the Drakkar and destroys the ferry, right? And so you've got that sort of intense climactic, episode 1, which would end with maybe the scene of the dragon in the mirror, right? And so that. And then, episode 2 would be all about that sort of that whole spiritual thing we talked about, the dreams and the visions and traveling through the world, trying to figure out their journey. And then episode 2 would probably end with the Rand is channeling the power to escape the Dark Friends, right? So now you're accelerating that. And then episode 3 would probably go all the way to Rand, blows open the hole in the wall, he and Matt escape, and all that adventure happens, right? And then episode 4 would culminate with Rand and they find the Eye of the World, right? And the Act 3 would be divided between episode 5 and 6, right? Where you have the great epic battle and it looks like they're losing the battle, and then episode 6 would be the climactic turnaround, right? And so that is how I would have pitched that TV series if they'd wanted to go TV route. And so that structured a journey that would hopefully make you invested into the next book and the next story for the next season, right? So, and then they're like, hey, that's great. We'll get back to you.
That is so frustrating. Take a wild ass guess how season 1 ended.
How did season 1 end? I mean, I have no idea. At this point, it sounds like another show with other characters. So,
Rand has a conversation with the Dark One at the Eye of the World. He does not fight.
So they get to the Eye of the World. They get that far. Okay.
They just talk it out.
They have a conversation. And then Egwene and Nynaeve kill all the Trollocs with a big magic explosion.
What's he doing though?
Having a conversation.
No, he just has a conversation. It's basically, well, this isn't the life that Egwene wants, so she doesn't want this. I don't want it either. While Marine is holding a dagger up to his throat, and she's in the real world, and he's kind of in Tel'aran'rhiod with Ishamael, and she's basically like, oh, if he's not the one, I'm just gonna kill this guy right now.
Okay, so he's basically a cuck pussy, basically.
He's luggage at best.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
we jokingly
go ahead.
Well, we jokingly refer to him as Randall Simp rather than Randall Thor.
All right.
It is.
Well, I mean,
it's rough.
Okay.
It is.
So who's the dragon in the show? Who's the dragon?
We don't know. It's a mystery box. You're gonna have to open it.
We think it's Rand, but the only reason that Rand comes to this conclusion is that he nutted in Egwene so hard that he had an epiphany.
All right, well, at least it's late in the show. All right, that's not bad.
They have sex like numerous times. I mean, in the first episode, he's banging Egwene on the table of the Wine Spring Inn.
So it starts like that's fast sexuality, you know, which didn't really vibe.
It ate them up too for that.
It didn't seem to vibe from Jordan's style.
It isn't. No. It isn't at all. Like he's very fade to black.
They were trying to do Game of Thrones. People banging in an very crass way. They thought they were doing that.
Yeah, it's awful. So, Son of Jockster had a question.
Perrin kills his pregnant wife.
Oh yeah, that happened. Yeah, he has a wife in this.
And then he kills her. He fridges her.
That one in my pitch.
Yeah. But Son of Jockster was wondering, how would you represent Rand's participation at the Battle of Tarwin's Gap?
I don't remember. It's in my notes somewhere. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because he's kind of.
Then I can find it. So tell me.
He's fighting.
Rand pops up and goes thermonuclear. Rand basically finishes at the Eye of the World, pops over to Tarwin's Gap, and goes thermonuclear on the Trollocs.
Okay, so I had that scene. I had that whole. Where the hell is it? I had that. Go back to my notes here. Yeah, wasn't that the whole power of the eye to destroy the Trolloc army? That whole sequence, yeah.
Yep.
And it would be very visceral and explosive, literally, and it would be about, because again, remember I said at the beginning, I want to bring it all full circle. So if you start off with the dragon losing his mind and having this kind of incredible power that kills people he loves, and they can create a mountain that becomes his prison, right, his tomb, right? The fear is when someone is potentially channeling the dragon again, or the dragon reborn, is that is a power that cannot be controlled. And so you want to see that sequence of destroying the Trolloc army is actually scary and makes you think, if the dragon is reborn, is that actually a bad thing? Because just because you took out the bad guys here, we've already seen the power can destroy the good guys too, right? We've seen it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what stakes are. That's how they do that. That's why Logain is such an important character, because what I was like, he's one of my favorite characters, but like through the telling of Logain's story, you realize that it's kind of a foreshadowing of everything that's going to happen to Rand. So you hear these people talking about, oh my God, this false dragon, this guy is evil. Like he had an army, he was attacking people. You realize what is at risk for Rand because he has this power and like he has to do this thing. And it's really interesting because Logain is a great character to set it up, and you hear about this guy from other people and you learn about the world, and it's just good storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, the idea of having a power that can consume you and is a threat, even as a hero, I mean, that's right out of Dune, right? I mean, that's a Quata Hedorok, right? He's got this power, but eventually he becomes a tyrant, right? Because then they're all afraid he's going to become a tyrant, and he does, right? Because the power is too much.
Yeah, it's crazy. But they don't establish that. What, Alex?
Carmen, I wanted to say, I feel like I'm sitting in a therapist's office, like I just got out of a bad relationship,
and you're trying to analyze what could have been, like how it went wrong.
Yeah, like there's a therapist sitting across from me explaining how relationships are supposed to work, and I'm coming to the realization, like, oh, this is what a normal, healthy script to this would have looked like, rather than one that is just riddled with cancerous ideology, essentially.
I just want to write the stuff I watch. That's all I do. I mean, I'm a fan. I want to entertain myself. That's all. I just want to jump up and down in the seat and enjoy myself when I'm watching it. That's my entire writing process. Because I'm actually teaching a screenwriting class right now. I was telling my students, you have to be the observer when you're writing. You sit there. I literally just imagine the scene, and I just transcribe what I'm seeing as if I'm watching it on the screen. I'm not creating it. I'm transcribing it as a fan, a viewer watching it. That's what I'm doing. And so, I think a lot of this bad writing comes from people thinking that they're writing the story, right? They think that, I'm going to one-up Robert Jordan, right?
Yeah,
That's constant,
it's the arrogance.
I got a question, Cameron. So this is a production writing question that I'm sure you've dealt with like this before, given working on shows like Kings. For this production, the big boon they got, their big get was Rosamund Pike as Moraine. That was the biggest, the only name actor they got for the show. Great, she's great. Nothing, yeah. But then now you're in a position
She's not that big. She's not that big.
Well, for the show, she was the biggest, only person I'd heard of, I think, for me as a layman who'd heard of on the show. So now they're in a position, they've brought this up now where they want to find extra ways to bring her and keep her more into the show and more important to the story, which is why it took so much away from Rand. So have you dealt with that where working on a show like Kings, where I mean, with the cast you had there, Sebastian Stan is a big star, and are they asking you?
Yeah, and Ian McShane.
Yeah,
the story of Kings was about the young soldier who's essentially King David, right? But Ian McShane is a king, but Ian McShane is such a big personality, and he had just come off of Deadwood, right? That was his previous thing, and he's a global star. I mean, he'd always been a British actor, but now he's a global star from Deadwood, and Ian is so intimidating. The other actors were all kind of intimidated by him, and he was, in many ways, he called the shots, right? And so you ended up having to give him stuff because he's the most famous and frankly the best actor. I mean, we had a very talented actors, but this guy's a whole other level, right? This guy's a whole other level. And so and there were moments where that created a conflict because the story required Ian to do things he didn't want to do. So I'll give you an example, right? So because in general the rule is you don't, as a writer, you don't generally tell the actors where the story is going, right? You don't tell them because some of them characters are going to get killed off and things. You don't necessarily want them to know because if they know they're about to die, then suddenly they're resentful on set. I've worked in that situation where actor found out he was going to be killed off in an upcoming episode, and then he was all like sully and hard to work with because he didn't want to be fired or whatever. And so you keep secrets because number one, you got to keep leaks in. Unlike these people from Lucasfilm who are leaking to me, they're not able to keep secrets, right? Which causes a problem for them. You want to keep controlled information, right? You don't want leaks out there. And so I was on set. I was sent to the set a lot on that show, and and he kind of liked me, but it's still Ian McShane. He's a powerful personality, and so there was a silly little thing that we needed Ian to hold up this like leaf that was symbolic of something that we haven't revealed yet. That's going to be revealed in the climax of the season 1, right? And it was just a moment where in the scene he had to hold up this damn leaf. We think we lost Alice, but and he wouldn't do it. Like in any take, he wouldn't hold up the leaf because he didn't feel it. He's an actor and he didn't feel it. He didn't feel that was the right move and the vibe of the situation. And I was like, fuck. He doesn't know we need him to hold up that thing because we're gonna have the previously on, right? And we're gonna have him holding the damn thing. Then we're gonna play off what that little gesture meant previously on Kings, right? And so I had to go up, and I was producer on set, and I was like, Ian, I really need you to hold this, right? He's like, I don't feel it. I don't feel it, right? And I'm like, Ian, I understand you don't feel it. I respect your craft as an actor, I really do, but we need you to do this, right? He's like, but it doesn't feel authentic to the moment, right? I'm like,
I know, and you're just kind of like, we just need you to do this thing. We can't tell you why.
The death of this character, whatever. I can't tell you that. And finally, it got to the place I took Ian aside because he wasn't doing it. I said, Ian, can we just do a few takes like that? Just give me a couple takes, right? We just need it for continuity. And then finally said, Ian, you and me, there's something happening that I'm not allowed to tell you about that I need you to trust me on. That you can just please hold the fucking leaf, right? Hold it. Just hold it, please. I can't let the other crew and the actors hear about this because then people start asking questions. Why would such a small, insignificant character be important? And they start theorizing. They start wondering what it means. And so just. And he's like, all right, fine. All right. He's a British gentleman. Right? And he did a perfect job with it, right? From the outside perspective, it looked perfectly authentic for him to hold it in that moment. He, as an actor, didn't feel it because actors work in their bodies and they're vibing their body and all that, and he didn't feel it. But it was like I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get Ian McShane to do this, right? This guy's a whole other level than me, right? I'm just like early on mid-level producer in my career, and
he's a huge star.
He's a huge star, and it's the kind of thing I don't want to call the showrunner about this because my job is to be on the set to solve problems. I'll share with you another thing that happened on the set there. So Sebastian Stan was a young actor on the show. He played one of the young prince, the son of Ian McShane's character, and he had just started, and so Sebastian had just come off of like Gossip Girl, right? And so that was where he had to build with it. And he already was like, the girls liked him, and he's a handsome guy and charming, whatever. But this was his big real break as in sort of a lead or semi-lead role. I mean, we had another character who was the lead, but he was sort of like the number two, and of the young people at least. And he was a very brilliant actor, but he was still very young in his training of acting. Unlike Ian, who's very disciplined, right? Literally, like Ian's like, I'm not going to do this, right? And whereas Sebastian, we had to restrain him because he didn't know his limits. So I'll give you an example. Sebastian, there was, if any watch the show, Sebastian's character is repressed gay and hiding that.
Yeah, he's a gay guy. Okay.
Yes.
I remember that.
Hiding that from his family, and because it'll be a royal scandal. And then the scene comes near the climax of the first season. We never had another season, but the climax of the first season where his mother confronts him and tells him, I know what you are, and I need you to get rid of this. I need you to push this down and not be this person, right? Very painful scene where the mother's saying, I know you're gay. You can't be gay in this royal family, right? And even if you have these desires, you got to crush them. It's a really humiliating scene and a very powerful scene, right? And so this is the pivot that Sebastian's been working for all season to get to this climactic moment, right? Between his mother and himself. And just before the scene started, so Sebastian's working himself, trying to get his emotional energy ready for the confrontation of the shouting, all this stuff. And he revs himself up so much. And I'm standing right next to him, and he does this right in front of me. Sebastian goes, and he's got his energy, and we're about to call, all right, action, get on the set, right? And he literally he goes and he punches the wall. He thinks it's a stage wall, like cardboard.
Oh my God.
It's a real brick wall. And he punches it full on, and he breaks his hand right in front of him.
Oh my God.
And he's like, oh shit, he's in real pain, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, and I'm the random producer on set at this moment. And I'm like, oh fuck. Call the EMTs. Oh shit. Everyone stop. Now the EMTs come, and he's in pain, he's in real pain, and he's broken his hand, and we gotta take him. I was like, okay, so call the line producer. It looks like Sebastian's not going to be on set for a few days, so we got to reschedule the entire shoot for the next 3 days because all the scenes for the next 3 days, he ain't going to be around while his hand heals. And now I got to deal with this. Showrunner's like, why didn't the showrunner's like, so why don't you stop this? I'm like, how the hell I know he's going to turn it? No, I didn't see that coming. But I did. I sat down with Sebastian while he's nursing this red, swelling, broken hand. I'm like,
oh God.
I said, Sebastian, you are an incredible actor. You're going to be a very big actor. I had this conversation with him. I said, but you must learn discipline. Ian can build up those emotions and control them. That is what an actor does. Mm-hmm. If you will not, I said, you're not going to have a successful career if you end up in situations like this where you cannot channel this energy in a healthy way, right? Because it's very hard for an actor. It's very hard to feel those emotions viscerally and then cut normal again. Most people can't do it. And
you can't.
And he's learning. And he was young, and and he went off to a wonderful career, and he was an absolute delight to work with. He's a gentleman. He was very nice. I'll share with you one other story from that. Where at the time I was dating this lovely Romanian girl, right? And Sebastian is Romanian. He's from Romania, as in he was born in Romania. He grew up there till he was like 12 years old, and then he immigrated in his early teens to America, right? And so he's Romanian, right? He's a Romanian immigrant, right? I was born in Pakistan. I came when I was 3 years old. I barely remember Pakistan. I'm American. Where he's Romanian who became American, right? And then, so, my girlfriend was on set because I'm like, I want to bring my girlfriend on set because you want to show off your power as a producer, right? Like, Ian McShane is like talking to me. I'm like, it's what you do. It's what human beings do, right? So I brought my girlfriend to set because this is cool.
Who wouldn't do that?
What you do. It's what you do. The only time that didn't happen was when we were on sleeper cell and our hero, he was dating Halle Berry, right? And he never brought her to set. We were all very Michael Ealy was dating Halle Berry. He kept talking about his girl. We're like, yeah, we know who your girl is. You want to bring her to set?
Bring her over.
He never did. So I brought my girlfriend to set, and so we were just sitting there, and and it cut whatever. We're sitting in the section which where all the cameras are, whatever, watching the screens. And my girlfriend's like, "Oh wow, she's so," and she was a big Deadwood fan. And here's Ian McShane there, and there's like this handsome Sebastian Stan and all this stuff happening, right? And Sebastian comes up, say, "How was that? Was it take good?" Right? He comes to talk to me, and I say, "Hey, Sebastian, here's my friend. She's from Romania. I think you're from Romania too, right?" And he immediately turns to her and starts talking to her in fluent Romanian, reading her, being incredibly gracious towards her. And she was shocked because we were talking about fluent, natural Romanian. And, she didn't expect that, right? She didn't even know he was Romanian, much less that this star of the show was going to come and talk to her in her native language, right? And let's just say that gave me more points. I want to thank Sebastian for the extra points I got in that moment. But that's a kind of charming, sincere, real person he was when I knew him. I hope the fame has not gotten to his head. It can get to a lot of people's heads, but the guy I knew was a decent, normal guy who just was incredibly talented.
That's a really cool story. Thank you for that.
That is such a great story. I know, it's so neat. It's like, I think that's so interesting because what I realized when I was studying directing was that like it is really hard to, I mean, one of the greatest things as a director you have to do is that you have to like figure out how to communicate with people and figure out what can I tell somebody to get them to give me the performance that I want. So it's like sometimes if you have to do something that's very emotional, it's like you physically have to work yourself up into it. I don't think people realize that actors have to do that. Like they think, oh, they're just pretending and all of that. I mean, no, there's a lot
feel those emotions. You've got to.
Yeah, you have to make it. Yeah,
the emotions. They're not mimicking it. They're not what you're indicating. That's the worst kind of acting when someone fake cries. It's fake.
Yes, that is so bad, but that is really interesting. So that's really unfortunate you never got the Wheel of Time because that just could have been it could have been so much better. And
well, I mean, that's the problem is, but aside from the fact at the time they didn't think I was worthy of it, whatever. I mean, I had looked at
I know
from Sleeper Cell, but I wasn't worthy of it, whatever. So, they didn't think that. The way it evolved when it got to Amazon, I would have said to them, like, this isn't going to work. Why are we doing this? And, I did that on Tron. This isn't going to work. Why are we doing this? And I got fired, right? Because that's what happened right? On Tron Uprising on Disney, right? Literally, I was the head writer, and I wasn't diplomatic when people pulled these political games. I called them out and said, "Why are we doing this? It's not good for the show." And they're like, "Well, it's good for my ego, and you're interfering with my ego, so you're going to go."
Yes, that's so hard. Like, I know it's always like I got in a lot of situations where it's like I wanted to say something, or even if it was like a critique, or like maybe it was something I believed, and I definitely found myself just being quiet about it, and that was probably the hardest thing about being in the industry. And
yeah, I mean, I've reached a stage here where I've survived. It'll be 22 years. 22 years this April that I've been a member of the Writers Guild, or a professional working writer.
Oh, wow.
And so I've survived it. And so that will lead me to, if you still have time, I will, better than Ragnar, who insists he read it, right? And so, that if I can I jump into sharing the Lucasfilm intel? You want to hear it?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Alex back, we've lost him for good.
I hope Alex comes back. I really, really do. Yeah.
Well, it would be fun to get his reactions to this. So, all right.
I know.
So those of you, and throw a link into the chat in a second. Those of you who I have this Patreon, and it's just started off with me about 18 months ago, just sharing my ideas about Hollywood and as a writer and blah blah blah. And because I'm an outspoken guy on a lot of issues, and I'm a working screenwriter, I started attracting a lot of people who were unhappy inside some of these companies who thought, here's a way to at least grumble to a fellow professional, right? And they would join my Patreon. And so over the last year, suddenly a bunch of people inside of Disney in particular, because that's where the most chaos is, right? We're joining and contacting me through DM, like, hey, this is who I really am, and this is what I do at Disney, and this is stuff. And they started feeding me real intel, right? They started, like, I started scooping people, like with that whole thing, remember months ago when Bob Chapek announced that they were going to do big layoffs, right?
Yeah.
And today they did those layoffs. Like Iger just did his layoffs and took credit for it, right?
Yeah.
Remember they announced that whatever in October, whenever it was. One of my Disney employees heard about that internally and sent me the memo before it was announced anywhere by 2 days. Like literally, Hollywood Reporter and Variety didn't know, and they sent it to me, and I was like, I don't know if this is true, but what the fuck, right? So I put it out there, right? Ended up scooping the entire industry by 48 hours. Like I put it out on Wednesday, and then Variety and Deadline reported on Friday, right? And so that's the quality of the kind of people I've got who literally are like providing me that kind of intel before it even gets into the system of Hollywood, right? So I had several of those moments. And then in the last several months, so I already had those people that were coming in, and I was proving because I was like scooping things, right? Then the last several months, a particular source who we've come up with a code name for them, a particular source who I call Sparrow, right? It's called Sparrow, or it could be her. I call this person Sparrow, right? I call this person Sparrow, and they are at a very high level within Disney. I'm not saying they're at Lucasfilm, they're within Disney. All I'm saying is that. And they have a personal axe to grind against some of the people inside of Lucasfilm. And I've confirmed who they are. And so over the last several months, this person who's very much on a personal vendetta to expose the misfortunes inside of Lucasfilm started leaking all this incredible information, including human resources data, like who's going to be fired, like stuff that's totally confidential. And they leaked it to me. And I was like, all right, well, I know this person is for real, and I know they have access to this information, right? So I'm like, screw it, I'm going to put it out. And this caused major panic inside of Lucasfilm because it got to the point where they were reporting to me actual conversations that Pablo Hidalgo was having with people, like that level of intel.
Wow, that's crazy. That is so crazy.
Hidalgo just said this to somebody. And that led to a level of panic inside of Lucasfilm because everything I was reporting was true. It was stuff that Kathleen Kennedy knew, like the list of people that are going to be fired, and Hidalgo's name is on it, and others people's names aren't. Not everyone at Lucasfilm, but within the story group, I got the list of people.
Those are big names.
Yeah, they're big names.
Are.
And HR created it was an HR list, so explain why they'd be fired. Like some of them apparently have Me Too problems. Some of them have other things, right?
Oh, God.
So this
yeah,
that was HR. When you're going to fire somebody, you've got to create an evidence base in HR, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the real HR file, which is like, so I won't, you can find out on my Patreon who those people are that allegedly have some kind of human resource problem, right? But so these were the I put them out, and then people inside of Lucasfilm started panicking because they hadn't heard this, and they're like, and this is true, and so now you have Kathleen Kennedy go, oh, shit, I haven't told these people they're on this list, and so then they had to deal damage control, and then Sparrow started giving me actual individual conversations that were being hovered in the office. Right. Wow. And I was word for word what people like Hidalgo were saying in their panic of the situation. And that made the panic worse because now they don't know what's happening, because their words are being reported. So who the hell is reporting this? Like, who do they talk to? Like, they don't know who to trust. Like, in their own company, they become afraid. I've said things, and now word for word, they're being on Cameron's Patreon. So it's obviously somebody in this room, but who the hell was it in this room? And maybe it's not somebody in this room, but then how the hell are they finding it out, right? So so this has led to a lot of panic inside of Lucasfilm, a lot of things. And so today, Sparrow came to me with a massive, because I reached out to Sparrow and said, hey, how is Lucasfilm reacting to the announcement today that Bob Iger is going ahead with the cuts to Chapek plan? Because a lot of people in Hollywood thought, Chapek's gone, Iger's going to come in and save the club. He's going to protect jobs, right? And he's like 7,000 people gone, right? And plus, and they're reducing their content creation budget by $3 billion, which means projects that don't work, that don't have an audience base, no longer have a budget. And he said that. I heard him say it today to the investors that that the creators are going to be held accountable to the economics of it. So that's huge. That means a lot of projects
that is huge
saying that they're going to do right they don't have a budget for anymore. So I want to find out what's happening. I want to share with you all some information and it gets crazier and crazier, right? And so I'm just going to go through. So this is what Sparrow, and I'm going to quote to you what Sparrow shared with me. And I'll tell you, this stuff made me laugh out loud because the level of paranoia is going to get worse inside of Lucasfilm because this is already on my Patreon now. So I'm going to quote to you some of the things. So I said, well, what happened with the impending layoff? So Sparrow got back to me, quote, excuse me, the layoffs will be focused on administrative staff and the lowest tier prop department inside Lucasfilm. They're also asking members of the location team they think might be disloyal. I'll explain what that means in a second. And for that, what happened with disloyalty, and this is the tragic part of it, is that my reporting from Sparrow, because it's so specific and they know it's real, so they know someone inside the company is leaking that level of detail that shocked them. They are now in an internal, witch trial. They're trying to find the person, and they're fingering the wrong people. They're fingering company, like fingering people in the props department, in the locations department, people that might have access to a lot of this info, because all these people in the background hear this stuff, right? It's like in a palace. It's the person who's pouring the wine that hears everything.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so they're like, because they can't imagine that it would be one of them, their buddies. So it's got to be one of these low-level people that's always in the background. So they're out targeting these poor people. And unfortunately, they're going to try to get some of these people fired, which is not my intention in putting this information out there. But that's the kind of paranoid behavior that it's gotten to. So they're like looking at, okay, this background person, that person, this low-level person, they must be the one talking to Kamran, right? So I said, well, that's bad. So, but what's going on? I said, on this like Leslie Headland's alleged acolyte show that we keep hearing announced, like it's filming. Right?
Oh God.
So Sparrow had told me several weeks ago that there is no Leslie Headland show. It's literally smoke and mirrors. They told me specifically, and this caused more panic inside of Lucasfilm because nobody knows this. It's not being reported. The official word in Variety is they're filming her show right now. That's the official word.
What the heck?
And
that is like
they're filming what's called a presentation, which is she's desperately trying to convince Iger to give her the money for a show. And so,
that's why
she's like, here's a few scenes of the scripts we've written. Give, maybe a few $100,000, and we'll film those scenes and create. I've worked on these presentations on shows. You create essentially like a pitch thing where you have like 15-minute reel of what the show is going to look like, and you bring in the actors, and because you look at some of these pictures that got leaked, they're like, that's pretty mediocre costumes. It's sort of at the level of this Wheel of Time, right?
Yeah. I've worked on productions like that. Yeah.
So Lucasfilm shows are bad, but they have quality props and quality costumes. Last Jedi is a beautiful looking movie. It's just a bad script, right? So they don't do half-ass bad costumes and weird. I mean, they don't do that at Lucasfilm. They might have bad scripts, but they don't do that. And you're looking at these like pictures that are being leaked from the acolyte show. You're like, this is bad costume stuff. I mean, this is bad. You're like, cosplay. What is this crap? Like the Wookiee looks like a joke. I mean, what is this, right? And it's because Sparrow had revealed to me that Disney had said, no, we're not going to give you the show. Convince us why we should give you the show. And so basically, Kennedy had to use her own money from whatever inner funds at Lucasfilm to put like a couple of $1 million and create like some kind of presentation. But that's not a lot.
That's insane.
That's literally that. I mean, so they reveal that. And of course, Lucasfilm panics because they've gone out to Variety claiming they're filming the show. And it's a lie. Right. And now here I am, random guy on Patreon revealing this. So that's leading to the panic. And so I said, well, what's going on with Headland? Because if with this Iger thing coming out, they're not going to take this shit anymore long. They're just going to pull whatever budget she has for a presentation. They're not going to waste any more time on it. And this is what the Sparrow told me today. They said they're not bringing any more big names, because I'd asked about Damon Lindelof claims he has a movie. He's like, oh, there's no movie. That's just all bullshit they're all claiming in order to pressure Disney to give them the money for the movie. And Leslie, in quote, direct quote, Leslie's project doesn't have a budget, and they can't afford to greenlight anything unless Mando makes money. So they are literally lying to the public and to the trades. Wow. And this is a gambit that Kennedy thought was going to work until this person decided, let me send this out.
But nobody wants that Leslie Headland project at all. Like no one wants that.
Nobody wants that. We're so sick of it.
Even if you remove yourself from Leslie Headland and all of the baggage that is involved with her, who the fuck wants to see the acolyte? Like,
there is no market for it. There is no market for it. And that's why when she made the announcement, I knew something was wrong, because I announced that she's having a show. Who's directing the pilot? It's Leslie Headland.
Yeah.
You mean you couldn't? Lucasfilm gets A-list directors for the pilot of its shows. You get Robert Rodriguez. You may not like what Rodriguez did, but you get people on that caliber. You don't, but you don't get Leslie Headland, who's got like made a couple of small short films, whatever. You don't get her to direct her own show. You couldn't find anybody else with Lucasfilm money. It's because they don't have a show. Nope. Robert Rodriguez is not going to come in and do a 10-minute presentation. They can't even pay him for that. So they got Leslie, you go do it, right? Because they couldn't get anybody. And so, but this is so self-evidently obvious, but they've been lying. And now here's my person revealing this, which makes them panic, right? So I asked, okay, so the acolyte isn't real, and now they've run out of money, so they're trapped, right? And eventually someone's going to ask, so when's the show going to premiere? And there's no show. They've literally been lying to the trades. I mean, that's how extreme it is, right?
That's insane.
I mean, Jesus Christ, there have to be 30 dead Star Wars projects at this point since the sequel trilogy has started. I mean, that is a fucking graveyard of projects.
Yeah. But this one,
how's that Ryan Johnson trilogy coming, boys?
It's up there with the Damon Lindelof movie that doesn't exist, right?
I know that was hilarious.
So you got this thing. So Sparrow confirmed. Look, they're not bringing any more of these big names. They're just hunkering down until Mando comes out, and then they see how Mando does, and maybe try to get some money from Disney. Like, can you please give us the money to finish this Headland thing? Because otherwise, we're going to look really stupid. Can you give us something? And they're literally like they're at that level of desperation, right, inside of Lucasfilm. And then, so I asked, so what's going on with what I call the flying monkeys, who are the Lucasfilm story group and those internal executives? I call them, Ms. Kennedy's flying monkeys. That's sort of a phrase that took off. And so this is a quote this person gave me. It said, quote, "Pablo is pissed at you. I wouldn't count on him asking you out to the prom. And the rest of the monkeys are saying they shouldn't be talking in public, only behind closed doors, because they're in paranoia mode, because their conversations in public, in the rooms, in the halls are being reported, right? And nobody knows how they're being reported. And so they're like,
that's crazy.
Did my fellow coworker report this? They don't know how it's happening, right? How could someone know that I said this? So the employees of Lucasfilm are imploding. They're turning on each other. They're like suspecting each other of leaking conversations. They don't even know who to talk to. So that's preventing a lot of their normal scheming, because they don't know who to trust anymore. That's their problem, because that's the culture they created, right? And this is the one thing that made me burst out laughing, because they've actually had an investigation to try to find Sparrow, because this level of information is so damning, and they know it's true. So they know it's not Kamran getting crappy sources, rumor. This is an actual person whose job I have identified, and know that they are real, and know that they are in a position to know all of these people and to know exactly what's going on. And so I now know this is not a rumor. This is a person who is either 100% lying to me and is a pathological liar, but is this person inside the company, or they're just telling me the truth, right? And the evidence suggests it's the latter. And so,
right.
And
exactly.
Yeah, and so now then they said, well, what is this paranoia leading to? And so Sparrow said to me today, quote, "Kennedy wants to have the place swept for bugs. She thinks you and Doomcock have the offices under electronic surveillance." Because you can't find this person, and they're reporting word. So you
this show.
I'm like, dude, do I have that kind of job? Like, they actually, because their investigation could not identify who could have possibly heard this and leaked it. So they have to have a bug.
This is the show. It's the show.
I was going to say, between this and I want to see the behind the scenes of Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilms, and I want to see the behind the scenes of the Amazon Prime Rings of Power show. I 100% guarantee that the espionage drama, the political intrigue of those incidents would be far better than the products themselves.
Yes.
I also have to say, Kamran, I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I really think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to save Indiana Jones, and that's going to be the cash cow that's going to bring this baby home.
I've been watching these trailers. I want to like them objectively. I don't want to be like, well, anything that comes sucks. I want to enjoy Indiana Jones. I like the first three. I didn't like the fourth one, the alien one, and I want to like this. But the trailers aren't. I mean, I saw the most recent trailer. It's just not good. I mean, I don't see how this is an Indiana Jones movie. Why should I care? I mean, why? I mean, you see the trailers for Raiders of the Lost Ark, it'll still pull you in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of the best trailers in the history of the business.
Yeah,
but
these incredible images from the Last Crusade, all that stuff, from Temple of Doom. I mean, they have such great visual elements. I'm like, you got Indy like riding a horse on a subway, and you got him cracking his whip at some dudes pulling guns on him. You got, what's this movie about? What's happening here? Is there nothing happening here that's a set piece that's of interest?
Yeah.
Well, I think they also have the fundamental problem, and I think you were actually one of the guys that confirmed this, that they basically had sort of the, if not the script, then the outline or the idea for that.
Yeah.
And they sort of, they did the thing they do where they kind of like leak it on the Reddits and say like, hey, what if, like, how will the public respond to this idea? And everybody said absolutely fucking not. And they panicked, and now they're having to basically sort of rework everything, and it's causing massive problems. I think that was you. Maybe that was Doomcock.
Doomcock certainly, I mean, to give him much credit, he got the whole time travel thing, and that ended up being reported and confirmed by like the Daily Mail, because they're filming in the UK, right? And I mean, I'm still hearing, and this isn't from Sparrow, so I don't know if it's true, but I'm hearing rumors that, and that's what I thought. Like after before Bob Chapek was fired, I actually, this was actually my first contact with Sparrow. So it actually does come from Sparrow. I remember that. The week before Bob Chapek was fired, he had actually had a very, very aggressive conversation with Kathleen Kennedy, because they had seen the results of the early screenings that they denied they had those screenings, right? They're just lying, because lying is what they do. Of course they had those screenings, because you don't make a $200 million movie without test screening it. It's against the basic protocols, of risk control. You wouldn't do it, right? And so they're just lying. They had the screenings. All 5 versions of it suck. They don't work. And so he had a very ugly conversation with Kathleen Kennedy saying, I gave you a year to fix this. The fuck is this, right? I give you a year to fix this. A year to reshoot the whole damn thing if you needed to. And this is garbage. And the plan was to reshoot it again. Right? And I'm sure Iger continued that. So we'll see what the final ending is. I'm sure he came up with another version that will just be like, okay, who knows?
Yeah. Well, Cameron, I gotta let Zax go, because he's got a scream that he needs to get to. So thank you so much for coming with, Zax, and thank you for introducing me to Cameron. Like, it's awesome.
Thanks for having me. It's a great time. And always an honor, Cameron. Always.
We got to do another one of our paranormal shows.
Yes.
As soon as Lady B's going on trip, as soon as she's back, I want to put that critic back together and do another show. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Zax. Have a good stream.
Awesome.
Thanks.
It's there. It's on Zax's thing. It's actually great. We went like 4 hours or something. It's crazy.
It was awesome. So thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
But we should probably wind up. Are there any questions in the chat, or anything they want to give sort of the our viewers? I've dumped a lot of info and just in the last 15 minutes, and it's great because your channels where I've actually talked about it publicly for the first time, because this is fresh off.
Pretty awesome. Thank you for telling us that. I had a question. Like, I know there was when I was reading about the industry, there was some rumors that Kathleen Kennedy was going to finally get fired or something. Do you think she's on the way out?
I mean, the thing is, one day she will be, right? I mean, people have keep hearing, I don't believe it, right? But she's not immortal. She's going to go one day, right? This was actually one of my early scoops from Sparrow before it started accelerating. So Sparrow had revealed this conversation between Kennedy and then they revealed this other thing. This is just before Iger pushed Chapek out, right, for the reasons that I discussed on my page on what I think happened. But he said that they actually had, Sparrow had leaked to me that they had concluded her exit contract, right, and they gave me the details of what the severance fee was going to be, and it certainly sounds realistic as someone who's working in the industry that they would get that kind of payout, that Kathleen would get that. So as of at least November, it was actually concluded apparently from Sparrow. The actual severance agreement was concluded maybe a few days after Iger took back control. So it was Iger that signed off on it. And so according to Sparrow, there is a severance agreement. There is an agreement. There is a date. It's linked to the Indiana Jones. It might be like a few days, a couple of weeks or a month after Indiana Jones is premiered and the news has gone away. And then, but there's according to Sparrow, and I
quietly, yeah.
So there is a date. There is a date set to go. And then Sparrow later revealed to me over the next several weeks, there were multiple times where Kennedy tried to go back to Iger and say, can we extend the date? Like when Damon Lindelof announced his Star Wars movie without anybody's permission. He didn't.
Yeah,
Kennedy,
that's crazy.
He was just doing that to get attention for his own career. And so she actually went to Iger, according to Sparrow. She went to Iger and said, look, well, the genie's out of the bag. I was talking about a movie. We don't really have a movie right now. But now that he's announced it and the industry expects it, can we extend my contract for another year so that I can supervise Damon's movie? And Iger said, no. First of all, there's no
interesting.
And this is from Sparrow. I believe it to be true. But no, Iger said, no, done. We have a date. We agreed to it. You signed it. And there's no Damon Lindelof movie, and you're not sticking around for it, even if there was. So that's
that's interesting. So we had a couple of questions. Someone was wondering if you knew anything about Pixar or if there were any Lucasfilm employees who were laid off in these layoffs.
We are going to get more information. Like I said, I haven't even backed my Patreon because I've got not just Sparrow, I've got multiple Disney employees in different divisions who have been feeding me intel as to what's happening in their divisions. So I don't know yet. I'll have to go back to my Patreon and see if anyone from Pixar or linked to Pixar has revealed that information yet. I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be across the board, especially at places that aren't making money. That's Pixar, that's Lucasfilm, and unfortunately, that's become Marvel as well because they've mismanaged this new. Right. So any places where they're not doing well, they got $3 billion that they have told the investors they're going to cut. It's going to come from somewhere.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, that's so weird to me because, like, when I was, believe reading all the trades and stuff like that, there's such this acquisition, there's such this development, huge deals, and it's like I was watching it all play out, and I'm like, this isn't turning out the way they wanted, and I'm like, it's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. So thank you so much for like giving us all this information. I mean, it was awesome to have the Wheel of Time because we're huge fans of that, but this stuff
and
was
you guys
really,
weren't
really
disappointed
too.
They weren't disappointed. That is a version of a story that you would have liked to have seen. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. And I mean, it's just, yeah, like you would have given us the story we deserved. Was not the story we got, but like, yes.
No, it's helping. And as to answer Darren Hughes, I'm pretty confident that Sparrow's safe because I know the position they're in, and I know they're not in a position that the Flying Monkeys can take them down. If the Flying Monkeys knew who Sparrow was, they just quit their jobs because it'd be to have that person as their enemy. It's too much. That's why they're literally they're going after these poor set designers and props people. They're leaking. Like, wasn't the props person in the room when I said that? Pablo, right? I mean, they're doing that. The person who's telling me this is somebody that has a sword on all their heads, and they're too stupid to know who they're. Somebody who's got a personal axe to grind against.
Somebody that's confident enough in their position that they know if they said something they wouldn't.
Are no threat to them, and if they knew who it was, they'd be like, oh shit, because it's like you think you're dealing with like this low level capo, and you're actually dealing with a mob boss, and it's just they don't know what they're dealing with here. So
yeah, it's real Game of Thrones there, so to say.
That's not my problem because I know who this person is. I'm like, it's like, you guys have no idea. Yeah, I'm not your enemy. You have this enemy who doesn't give a damn that they're embarrassing you.
It's like you've become your own enemies because it's like you guys' own incompetence and your own inflated egos has led to this. And forgetting why you're here and what you do as a job has led to you guys being in this situation. So it's your own problems. But
this environment where people would do something like this, and powerful people would do something like this against other
people. Yeah. But we've almost gone on for 2 hours, and I know it's getting late for you, and you've got school and Alex's work and everything, and we have other streams starting soon. So I just really wanted to thank you so much for talking to me. This was very interesting discussion, and I definitely look forward to. I'm going to join your Patreon too, and talking to you.
You'll join the Lucasfilm spies because one of the things I learned is that several Lucasfilm spies actually signed up for the Patreon under fake names. They give me money, and I'll take your money. I'm just going to keep posting, and it's actually my post being spread internally amongst executives. I was like, "There's nothing you can do about it. Thanks for giving me the money. Thanks for joining." So whatever.
Yeah, cool. So do you have anything coming up or anything you'd like to promote other than your Patreon? Because I have links on that.
Yeah, Patreon is a way to connect with me, and aside from these fun things that have happened, because again, I just started off to share my ideas on screenwriting and the industry, and now this other whole thing is taken over, right? Like, I'm in the middle of this like intel war of like powerful people inside Disney. I'm like, all right, I'll be your voice, no problem. But come there for that. And I actually on my screen, I actually do have screenwriting stuff. If you want to be a writer or a novelist, because I'm both. I actually have a method that I teach that I'm teaching here at the university that I'm teaching at of how to write screenplays, and I share that method on the Patreon, and a lot of people have found it very helpful. And if you have like a screenplay or a novel or a story that you're working on, you can consult with me through the Patreon. Like I've had a couple of dozen Patreon members have actually given me a script or a book that they're working on, and I've like professionally consulted with them. They pay me the fee, and there's a discount for the Patreon members, and then. So far, people seem very happy with one person on the Patreon.
As long as it's not Save the Cat.
That's my own method. But one member of the Patreon is a young screenwriter who came through the script that didn't work. He wanted professional consulting. I consulted with him. I told him it doesn't work. Let's restructure it. I told him how to restructure it, and he did the work. He rewrote the entire script on the new structure I told him to do. And now he's winning awards. He's like winning screenwriting competitions, like left and right.
Yeah, when it all clicks. Yeah, I know. I'm excited. I hope when I get my novel to a little better state, I can get your help with that because I definitely needed an editor.
You'll get the Lady Bellfire discount. You'll get it.
Thank you. Alex, do you have anything coming up? I know we have part 3 of our video. I think we're going to try to put that out on Friday, right?
Yep, that is the goal. And then I assume I will eventually finish the Parent Ibarra video. But
awesome.
It's been kicking my ass. So those are the 2 big things on the horizon for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both so much. And I had such a great time. And thank you, Kamran, for filling in this little niche of Wheel of Time history and giving us a glimpse into what might have been. And thanks again.
What might be like 20 years from now when I'm famous and rich, and this,
yeah, they'll be like, okay, you're the man now. I mean,
put my notes out. I'm gonna do this thing.
Yeah, that's always the depressing thing. Yeah, they just do not realize talent. Nobody's willing to take a chance. But thank you for taking a chance on my show and talking to me. And I hope you have a great evening. And with all of that, you guys, I hopefully will be doing another stream at the end of the month. And I will be with the ladies again. And I think we're going to talk about women drivers. And probably will bust out some of my racing car stuff. So there might be an AMA with me if you want to ask about racing or anything.
The hot chicks talking about cars. We got to promote that, Alex.
Yeah, we have. Well, my friend Jay the Deep Minded is she does some stuff with F1, and I didn't know that her husband is involved with that, and she's pretty intimate connections with that. And I was just like, oh my god, I love racing. Like I used to do rally cars and stuff like that. And yes, thank you guys so much. So I'll that'll probably be closer to the end of the month. I have to get my stuff ready and dig out all of my videos and stuff like that. So thank you guys again, and I am going to play you out, and have a great night, everyone.
The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time. But it was a beginning.